We will now discuss configuration for PM plans. So, preventive maintenance. If we look here in the scheme of things, you first need a technical structure, then you have the preventive maintenance plans associated with it. So, here in the config menu, we once again go to plant maintenance. Then you go to maintenance plans, work centers, task list, and there you go, and you start from here. So, these here in the basic settings, you're defining the planner groups. This is part of the cutover activity. I mean the config for plans rolling out. You don't need the ABC indicator, just so you're aware. So then we go maintenance plans. So you define the maintenance plans categories. We already have one. We always use 01. If you ever feel that you need to create a new one where maybe you make it for notifications instead of work orders or whatever you feel you want to do, you can create it right here, right? So different categories, work order, notification, service entry sheet, etc. We only have one and we use a Maple Leaf is 01. So there you go. I'm going to go into maintenance plan to show you what this is. You go click here. Plan category 01. There it is. You see it? It's defined in configuration. Define the number ranges for maintenance plans. You go in here, just like all number ranges. You first create the category type, and then you create the NR object, and you create the group, which was discussed in previous video. So here it is, 01, and it's defined to this. So that's all set up. Next thing is the number ranges for maintenance items. So one thing you have to understand the way it's set up is that maintenance plans have a one-to-many relationship to maintenance items, but you have to have at least one maintenance item. So a maintenance plan and maintenance item are different. Maintenance plan holds all the timing information behind the PM, the preventive maintenance, and then the maintenance item holds all the technical information, like it holds the work centers doing the work, the order type that's doing it, the technical object the work's being done on, maintenance activity type, task list, etc. That's all held at the maintenance item. You can have one maintenance plan to many maintenance items relationship. So that's how that works. There's separate objects. Here to define the sort fields, this is part of new config. So every time you do config for a new plant, you go in here, you create two. You create one for the basic and then one for counter. And there's a naming convention for it. So that's the config you do. Field selection for maintenance plans, you go in here, you define what fields you want defined. You could hide some of them. You could do whatever you like, you know. Here's all the fields. Hide them. Don't hide them. Do not make them the field you want to see in the order. It is completely up to you how you want to do this. You can even put like a cost center. Each one has its own cost center. So that's how that works. So actually the cost center is kind of important if you want to do it for sanitation, because I know sanitation wishes to have a different cost center than from the one that defaults in from the technical object. You could create the PM plans and have a different cost center default in, but you first got to define it here to show up in the maintenance plan when you create it. So you go through this way, and then you assign that to the maintenance category. Define field selections for operation data. So here you go. This is for the operations. There you go. All that defaults in. Here's the list edit T codes as we know. IP17, IP15, IP19. Okay. That's weird. And so forth. So that is that. Back to maintenance plans. And the rest are all list edit T codes. You just got to find out which T code deals with what, and you could edit them there. But like I said, Maple Leaf uses a variant and layouts to define their default looks of these list edit T codes. So that finalizes maintenance plans. Like I said, all the information is here within the maintenance plans. And yeah, there you go. We're going to go to work centers now. Nothing else for work centers. We're going to keep them simple. Uh, there's a lot of financial data linked to the work centers. Do not link to HR. Very important that you know that. If you do get an HR solution, you have to do you have to do some config work here. Basically, the HR work center and the PM plant maintenance work center are separate objects, and they have to be linked. The HR work center will bring in the personnel data. So if you have wages or schedules or position or skills and qualification, all that be brought into HR. And then plant maintenance would just say the financial information, overhead costs, start and end dates, etc. So those two have to link. So just be aware that you have to go in this part of the config menu and link it appropriately. And your HR personnel should know what needs to be linked to PM. So just giving you the heads up. So we'll start with work centers. So if we look here, here's the work center tab from plant maintenance. You open up general settings. Here you first have to define the work center type. We're only using one. It is this one right here, SAP PM1. Plant maintenance maple leaf. Field selection. All this stuff is already set up for you. If you want to define a new series of workers, you can do that here, create a new one. Now we're going to go look at a work center. So when we create a work center, it forces us to put in the plant, the work center name we want to give it, and the work center category. That's what I just defined there, the work center category. So SAP PM1. There's in config, SAP PM1. There you know where it is. Field selection, you go here and you define what fields you want required, displayed, input it. So go into the work center, we create one. Here's all the fields. There's a costing tab. You see all the fields are defaulting in. Once again, here's where in config you set that up. Right? You can make it mandatory, required, not required. So the point I'm trying to make is that you could truly simplify the way this looks. There's one more thing that's really neat that you could do, actually, that will make everybody's life much easier. It is that you go here where it says create default work center. And the thing is that when you create a work center, there's quite a bit of data that has to be transferred in. So if you go look at a work center right here, let's go look. You'll see all this data has to default in. This. All this has to default in. It's the same for every single worker per plant. The only thing that'll be different is the start and end date for each worker. But everything else could be the same. So you can make this a mandatory field and force the users that are making new new work center to just input that field and nothing else. And what you do, you create it right here in plant maintenance. So let's say you define the plant. I'm going to say 6501, which is Toronto. And then you define the values. Like you can even put a default description in. 101, etc. So that's how that works. Here's the field selection that we talked about. You could hide or leave fields. You don't have to worry about parameters. You don't have to worry about this field either. Employees responsible. This is something that's part of the new config for each plant. Its values that default in, like who's responsible, 101, 001. It just defaults in. It says maintenance. Basically, you're just labeling that this is a maintenance work center. That's all you're really doing. You put this here is putting in person responsible as maintenance. So every time you do work against a work order or a notification, and you put in this work center, it's going to label that as maintenance. It's just another labeling tool. So that defines work centers. Most important two are creating this one, which is already done for you, the field selection, and then the default values for work centers, which is not done yet, but it could be a good addition. for plant maintenance solution here. Now we're going to look at task lists. So here, when you create a task list, there's certain information you want to default in from the work center. One here would be the control keys, and this has a series of information. You always want it to make a SAP PM 01. That's already set up for you when you do the cutover. Here's the data it'll bring in. And in here, the last one is configure screen maintenance. So basically, all the tabs that you see, you go by means work center category. So if we go look at the work center, here's all the tabs. We have them right here. These ones are missing because they're HR, and that's it. You could change around the sequence. You could hide them. It's up to you. You can make it the main. So that's how that works. We're now going to talk about task list here, and that deals with the PM plans. Task list, general data. Here's the statuses for task lists, release. If we go look at a task list, that's always the easiest way of doing this. Let's go create a task list. So you go look at a task list, and right here you have statuses right here. So 1, 2, 3, 4. You could define them there. This is a config item. So we see here 1, 2, 3, 4. You could have all sorts of rules. Cater. There you go. So just go over this and ensure that it matches the other task list types. You always have to make it 4. There it is. Plant maintenance. Configuring the planner group to the task list. This is also part of your configuration steps that you do when you do a new rollout for a plant. There it is. So we go back here into task list. We'll see the planning plans defaulting in, and then we want to define the planner group. So planner group 1, planner group 2. We defined that in config as you saw. We're just looking at it actually. So that's that. Control data. Number ranges for task lists. Like all other number ranges, it works the same way. Number ranges for equipment task lists, number ranges for functional location task lists. There's 3 types of task lists. You guys are using the equipment and functional location task list. You guys could also create general maintenance task list. That means it applies to anything. It doesn't have to be an equipment or a functional location. So those are more versatile task lists. So the one that's really important here is this one. Says define profiles with default values. So when you're creating a task list and you put in operations, one thing that's good to do is to have certain values already default in. The more values that default in, the less entry for your users. At the same time, you want to make sure that the values you default in are actually values that don't need to be changed. They're consistent across the whole business. So here we go. We created one for plant maintenance. Is this one here? It'll default all the time PM network. But the main things that you really care about are this right here: calculation key, duration, and unit of work. That's really what you care about. And purchasing organization, usage and status. And then the increments are by 10. So just showing you if you want to change it to where it shows instead minutes or days is up to you. Next one talks about the field selection. So like all other TCOs we talked about are list edit, or like as an IE01 or I02, or all the actual master data TCOs you see. You define the fields right here. You go in here and say what field you want to show. What you want to show, what you want to hide, what you want to make required, what you want to just make display only. Display means it'll gray it out. You can't even put your value in. So, and this means highlight means you make it yellow. So that's how that works. It's already been set up for you. So if there's really a need to change something in the task list, that's where you go. You go in here and just change what you want to change, the way you want to change it. Then we go to operation data. We go here, maintain the control keys. So these will be the control keys that default in. So we want to use this one, ZP01. And then for refurbishment, we use I think it's this one here, ZPO3. Yes. There you go. So here to define the user fields. Here to define the list edit T code. So like let's say IH08, which is a list edit for looking for task list. You define the values that default in there here. But you could here Maple Leaf usually do it via the variant and layout fashion. And here's for multi-level. We don't utilize that, so you don't need to worry about that. And that is task list in a nutshell. We do not use PRTs here. PRTs are tools. You guys don't use tools here. You do not account for your tools in that fashion. And you're not using service contracts through here. You're doing it through a different way. So you don't need to do any of this config here. So that's good. So, and you're not doing warranty claim, and you're not doing work clearance management. So we have completed preventive maintenance, work center, and task list configuration. All this you should know how to do. It's all defined there. And that's it.